if you're going to get into this profession, you've got to find joy in the smallest victory.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're very conference championships and all those things they're fleeting and they come and go, and they're not very common. But if you can be excited and joyful about your third down call getting put in, or your recruit that you like getting recruited, if those things can motivate you, then you can have a successful career, in my opinion.
Welcome to Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. Each episode pulls back the curtain on the coaching profession, spotlighting voices from every level of the game and offering lessons and insights for your own path. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Follow Inside the Headset on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive content. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and leave a review. It really helps others discover the show. We drop new episodes each week, so hit that follow button and never miss a moment. Now, let's get inside the headset.
Coach, what's happening, man? How you doing?
What's going on? Good afternoon.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, my brother, and super excited about having you on. And without further ado, let's just dive into this thing. When did you know you wanted to be a ball coach?
Shoot, early in life, just growing up, loved playing the game, and I was a football and basketball guy, but loved playing the game, loved watching the game, loved talking about the game. And so from a young age, I knew I wanted to do it. I was an average football player in high school, so I had to go kind of a unique way to get there, but I knew it was always going to be something that I wanted to do and as a calling. I think that football for me is a way for me to mentor younger guys and also do and talk about the sport that I love. So it's been a great opportunity to get to do what I'm doing now.
When you kind of knew you wanted to be a part of the profession, were you already under the mindset that it was at the collegiate level? Did you want to be a high school coach, NFL? Did you have a particular level, or it was just about coaching?
No. Yeah, no, not at all. Just love the game, and just I've definitely been blessed. I have worked hard, but I've been blessed to be in some right places at the right time and be around some great mentors, and kind of led me toward being in the college game. But no, ball's ball to me, and I just want to be around it no matter how it can be.
Yeah. So, and you talked about kind of a unique start. You got started as a student assistant, and regardless of where you are, where you start, that first gig is a lot. Most people say is often the most toughest one to get the ball rolling. So, how did you kind of get started and be able to join that staff at Auburn in 2013?
Yeah, I'm a little bit unique. Before I started doing this, before I got in at Auburn, I had no connection to college football. Didn't know a single college football coach. My family doesn't do anything like that. So I applied and interviewed for a job in the recruiting office at Auburn. Got that job. I was a sophomore in college. And then after doing that for a season, I kind of rolled the dice and decided to not go home, not get a job for the summer, just stay up at the facility and just see how I could help. So whether I could help with camp or help with recruiting visits or help with breaking down little special teams film, I just stayed that first summer and just tried to get in people's way and ask for jobs, and did that. And one thing led to another. And I got a little bit more responsibility, and ended up going through my whole time at Auburn that ended in December 2015. So really just sticking my nose in there and trying to find out ways for people to use me.
Yeah. Oftentimes young coaches get advice, about, being aggressive is what it comes down to, just putting yourself in a situation to be able to even ask the question. I'm trying to think who was the head coach in 13. Who was it at that time?
Gus Malzahn had just got the job.
It was Gus Malzahn had just got the job. That's right. And, Gus Malzahn is walking down the hallway. You're this, what I'm trying to think, 19-year-old, 20-year-old guy. He has no clue who you are. Like, how do you initiate that conversation to, even put yourself in a situation to ask?
Well, maybe I'm a little bit unique, but my whole mindset going in that whole time was just to be as irreplaceable as possible when the time came that I did leave. So I had days and weeks when I felt like I was doing nothing. And I had days and weeks where I felt like, man, that really gave me a lot. It's a lot of, I feel important. I think as a lot of people trying to crack into the business, I think when you get that first job, you feel like, all right, I'm a college coach.
Right.
I'm going to start calling the plays this afternoon. Like, that's not the case. My job for years was to get lunch and make copies and draw scout cards and coach the scout team. And, I very, very, very rarely, to be completely honest with you, very rarely had those one-on-one personal conversations with Coach Malzahn, because he runs a big organization and I was a tiny, tiny little piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And so I felt like, and I still do feel this way to some extent, like my job was to just do whatever job is possible for me to do and find jobs that other people don't want to do, because eventually you become replaceable enough that if you miss a day of work, people look around and go, where did this guy go? And that's the hope. And that's kind of the mindset I still try to take in my current job.
Yeah, no doubt about it. During that time frame, and I kind of rattle it off because you assisted with player personnel, special teams, recruiting, defense, part of teams that appeared in the 2014 BCS National Championship, Outback Bowl, Birmingham Bowl. Like, you had a lot of experience, whether it's just success on the field, things that are going on behind the scenes inside the football offices. What were some of the things that you were able to kind of gather and learn that's kind of helped propel you in your career thus far?
Well, I was really blessed to have great mentors. And so I was doing a lot of different things at Auburn, working in a lot of different things. People like Casey Woods and Bobby Bentley and Rhett Lashley, obviously Coach Malzahn, and those guys gave me great opportunities. Eric Link on special teams. But then really my whole career, and I really say my life, changed when Will Muschamp got the defensive coordinator job in 2015. Going into my last year. And again, of course, being a guy that was a student assistant, didn't play in college football, was one of those kind of just probably dumb kids that thought I knew a lot about the game. And when I became Coach Muschamp's student assistant my senior year, he was kind of the first one to really grab me and in his own way kind of explain to me, hey, I forgot more than you know, but I'm going to start teaching it to you. And so he was really the one, and some of those other people on his staff, and some of them I'm still with now, but he was the one to really take the time and sit down and teach me the defensive side of the game that I just would have had no other way to figure out unless someone showed me. And so I was really blessed throughout that whole time at Auburn. And it's a long, long list. And you can go back and look at the 2013 staff, 2014 staff at Auburn was just littered with successful coaches. But I was lucky to have those guys care enough about a young student assistant to put their arm around them and kind of show what college football was really about at a high level. So I have a long list of people that I probably need to go thank one day.
Yeah, what's interesting is, like, we cut some of the stuff into sound bites and put them on social media and things like that. But for them to put their arm around you, it doesn't happen without all the other stuff prior to, without you being willing to, work your tail off and all that kind of stuff. And for people to kind of look and say, man, that young man is invested. He wants to be great. And now I'm willing to share. I don't know, just talk about that part of it. Like, I guess the patience for that time to come, because obviously you walk in and sometimes you want them to, hey, I'm here, teach me. I'm ready to learn. But sometimes you kind of got to earn that a little bit. Not sometimes, almost all the time you got to earn that.
Yeah. I mean, the best example I can have is I started working there in February of 2013, and my first game on the sideline was in the first game of 2015 with Coach Muschamp playing Louisville in the Dome. So I was doing a lot of things. I was breaking down video. I was helping recruiting. I was doing all those things, but I wasn't even on the travel squad until I was a senior. So, and that was, again, credit to those guys to get me in that position. But it took years and years, and we can go on to other things on the past. But I coached 10 years before I got put on the field.
Yeah,
and so just the patience, I guess maybe not advice, but what I learned was the patience to not be seen for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
I broke down special teams film at Auburn in the basement where there was no windows and no one ever came to see me, and I never saw anybody, and I would come and go and no one ever knew I was there. It's just the part that I don't think everyone understands about coaching in college is that very few roles are front facing. Mm-hmm. Very few people get to be on a podcast like this. Most people in college football, a vast majority, are in small offices watching video and watching recruits and crunching numbers and doing all those things. And so there's tons of great opportunities in college football, but very, very few are glamorous, as I think it gets portrayed in the media.
Yeah, no, you said so, man. Kind of gave me some goosebumps a little bit because, I think right before we got on the podcast, we were talking about just how fast is always the next thing, and sometimes you just don't get to stop and smell the roses in this profession, especially when it's kind of an individual type thing. It's like, I got a promotion, cool. Now I got a long list of things to do. Just if you could reminisce, like, what was that moment like when they were like, "Hey, man, you coming with us? Grab your stuff. You on the flight. You on the sideline." What was that moment like?
Yeah,
I know it was big.
Well, I can tell you a funny story from that night. So we played Louisville in the Georgia Dome to start the season, and so I'm first time traveling with the team. I think the DFO or somebody messed up. I'm in my own hotel room, which there's no way that was right. But the game was early, but something was messed up with the bus, so they had me drive into the game with the managers, and we were leaving at 6:00 in the morning. So I woke up wide awake at 3:00 in the morning, took my shower, got my clothes on, sat in my hotel from 3 to 6. So we're driving home after the game. I'm exhausted. I'm realizing, oh my gosh, I've almost been up 24 hours. So it was just a great feeling to get to. That was really the first time I felt like, oh my gosh, all this stuff is leading maybe to something.
Right.
And I don't know what that will be, but just a tiny little bit of acknowledgement. And that's, if you're going to get into this profession, you've got to find joy in the smallest victory.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're very, very conference championships and all those things they're fleeting and they come and go, and they're not very common. But if you can be excited and joyful about your third down call getting put in, or your recruit that you like getting recruited, if those things can motivate you, then you can have a successful career, in my opinion.
That's right. I love that advice. That's definitely real. Now, you spend, your student assistant time, doing multiple tasks, growing a ton in the game. And then you have the opportunity to kind of head over to South Carolina, I'm assuming, with Coach Muschamp. Just talk about the whole conversation that kind of circled around you, once again, having one of those sweet moments to where that you're, taking a step in your career and having an opportunity to get a quality control job at the P4 level.
Yeah. So Coach Muschamp got the South Carolina job, and those guys all took off for the most part. Before we played in our bowl game, I stayed back. Obviously, the bowl game, didn't know if there would be a role for me, but what happened, it timed up. It's kind of funny how God works. So I graduated in December of 2015. And so I didn't hear from the South Carolina staff about whether I'd be able to go. So now I'm at Auburn in January and I'm not in school. And so, the student assistant thing and not getting paid was all cool when I was not in school. Now I've got my parents, knocking on my door saying, hey, what's the plan here, bud? You're not going to work in this football office for free for your whole life. So what are you doing? And so I had spent that whole semester talking to the administration at Auburn about, I'd love to stay. I'd love to be a graduate assistant. Well, when all the coaching change happened over, Coach Steele came in as a defensive coordinator, Kevin Steele, who did a fantastic job, and helped him a little bit. But graduate assistant was in the cards. And so I'm sitting at home one day in Auburn in February, I believe, and Coach Muschamp calls me and offers me a job for a little bit of money, but it's all coaching. It's at South Carolina. It's on a new staff with people I love and care about. I'm excited about it. I said, okay, give me half a day to think about this. And in the next hour, Coach Malzahn called me and brought me into his office and said, hey, I've got a job for you. It's all recruiting. It's no football. Oh, wow. But it paid about triple what South Carolina was going to pay me. Yeah. And so I had to, that night, sit on my couch alone and think about, what do I want to do? Which path do I want to go down? Which both are great. But I chose to go the football path. And really, it was less about football, more about relationships, more about Will Muschamp and Travaris Robinson and Lance Thompson and Kyle Krantz and all those guys that really, really brought me up in the game, and going and trusting them with my development for the future. So I try to do this as much as possible, but South Carolina was the first example for me of trying to do things professionally with the long run in mind. and not trying to jump at the most money possible and trying to jump to the right situation.
Yeah.
Because, I hope that, I'm 32 years old. I hope to coach this game long for the next 30 years or more. So I don't want to make, snap decisions about what's really maybe a smaller amount of money, and just do the things that are right for myself professionally for the future.
When you were talking about when you knew you wanted to be a part of the game, you kind of mentioned that your family didn't come from coaching or anything like that. No. And you just mentioned that you were kind of just kind of chilling a little bit on mom and dad's bill after you had finished at Auburn. And let me tell a story real quick, and then I kind of tied together.
Yeah.
But out of college, I coached high school ball for 3 years, and in Texas, you're not going to get rich, but you're going to make a pretty good, lump of change, somewhere around $50,000 straight out of college, and that was a big deal.
More and more every day, it seems like.
Yeah, no doubt, it's unbelievable now. But I remember the opportunity came for me to join the staff of Texas A&M Commerce. I called my parents. I'm like, man, you doing it? Heck yeah. But here's the deal. I'm taking about a 80%, salary decrease.
No doubt.
And my parents, because they didn't come from that, coaching world or anything like that. They didn't get it. They didn't quite understand, friends didn't quite understand, like, how, when you have those two job situations, you're talking to your folks and saying, I'm going to take the one that's going to pay a third less. What does that dialogue look like to people that don't know?
Well, I'll tell you, and I'll admit now that I'm blessed, just with my parents and my family and my wife now, but my parents at that time just ultimately supportive.
Yeah.
Come from a family where my dad professionally did extremely well. So I always felt that pressure, and still to this day do, to be successful like he is in those things. But never one time did I hear from them about which job to take or do this or do that. It was always, pray about it, make the best decision for you, the one that you feel comfortable with. And so I'm blessed in that situation that, again, like I said, 32 years old, I've never been pushed into a single decision by my parents, especially professionally. So they've been nothing but supportive, and it's been great for me. That's a huge blessing in my life. And I know that's a big reason why I'm sitting in the chair that I am right now.
And all right, and I also want to ask about kind of that void area between this bowl game, or I guess Coach Muschamp getting the job, and then him calling you there in February. What was there any dialogue between you and Coach Muschamp? Was it, hey, I'm out, man, keep your phone on, or was there any kind of thing to keep you hanging around at all, or hanging on to the idea?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. There was a lot of me stressing out, and I hope this is going to work out and all those things. But I'll tell you the funniest thing, and it was advice that I got from a coaching mentor. But I was at Auburn. I was working. We were in the transition with the new staff, and I wasn't sure if they were going to offer me a job. I didn't know what I was going to do. So eventually one day I just didn't go. And, that was kind of not my plan the whole time, but that was kind of the whole reason for me, kind of what I said back to earlier, of just do so many jobs that when you're not there, they call and want to know where you're at.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so I eventually at some point, and it was early in February, just didn't go. And at some point, because I needed to know, right? Am I going to get a job? Do I need to go get a job in the real world? What do I need to do? And I still hadn't heard from South Carolina.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of led to, because that, and then my phone started ringing from people in the Auburn building saying, hey, where are you? Are you coming back? And I think that hopefully led to some conversations. But again, as much as we love to talk about the game and all those things, and the reality of it is we're still talking about a business. Yeah. And so we still have to, from time to time, you try to make business decisions that are best for you and to protect you and your family. And so that was kind of a different situation, but I was lucky that the Coach Muschamp called me there shortly after.
Now, I do have to ask, that morning was that a decision you made the night before? Did you wake up that morning and say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna see my value? Or, what kind of led you to do that? Because that's this industry, that's wild, man. I mean, that's bold and important.
It was brewing for a little bit, and it was, again, absolutely nothing against any of those guys that were at Auburn then. They were only good to me. But I just, I had asked and bothered. And at some point, it just wasn't working. And so I had to just cut it off cold turkey. And I made my decision one morning. I was like, all right, I guess I'll just go to Waffle House instead of work and see what happens. But
just,
it was
just sitting there staring at your phone, waiting for it to light up the whole time. Wow.
Yeah,
I can only imagine.
Not something I plan on doing again.
No, I mean that's important, and that you said that though, because one of the things I express often here on the podcast is like, man, you in this business, especially early on, I mean, you pour not even early on. I mean, you just do it the whole time, but early on, a lot can be asked from you.
Yep.
Because the other part of your story that you probably failed to mention was after that Louisville game where you talked about you stayed up 24 hours dang there, is the party didn't end there. You had to go break down some film, right? And you were right back in it preparing for the next week opponent, and like nobody cares that you didn't sleep. You still got tasks to do, and I just think it's important that you obviously in the business where you're so so selfless, you're pouring yourself into so many young people, other people on staffs, and you have an important role to make the ship go, that it's important that you do look out for your self-worth and your family, and and make sure you kind of keep that on the forefront at times, because it's easy to be a yes man and just do whatever, but sometimes you gotta do those type of things, man. So I appreciate you sharing that. Now you get over to South Carolina now. You're just in a much different role, right? It's football only. It's kind of your first time experiencing that part of it. Your defensive quality control coach, which that term in itself has been it's morphed depending on what school you're at, and what time frame it's at. It can entail so many different things. What was your role? Like, kind of what did you do when you got started over there as a quality control coach at South Carolina?
Again, just go back to, and I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but just go back to whatever's needed. And so we had a smaller, relative now to these SEC staffs you see with 40, 50 people on it. We had a little bit of a smaller staff at South Carolina. I think that was just Coach Muschamp's preference, which was lucky for me because I got tons of responsibilities and roles. And so, again, whatever was needed, all the breakdown stuff, all the card stuff, scout team stuff, recruiting, helping full-time coaches recruiting my own people, doing all those different things. And again, just being, like you said, selfless, but just having the mentality of, I'm not above any job. I think that's like super easy for people to get into, especially in college football. I mean, I don't think it necessarily is as much in high school, but especially in college football, I think this day and age, you see people that, I'm this role, I would never do that, or I'm this role, I would never do that. And you talk about it being a business and protecting your family. My mentality, and still is to this day, the best way to protect myself professionally, to take care of my family, is to just have a selfless mindset of, hey, if this needs to get done, I'll do it. And that's going to create value far past, because again, this is a great profession. There are tons of great coaches. There are tons of better DB coaches than me in this country, and I'm not naive enough to think that they're not. But what I do think is that I'm willing to do things that other people are just not.
Yeah.
So do I need to drive people to the airport? Do I need to pick up this from the restaurant? Do I need to go get coach his dinner? My time in South Carolina, and really that whole 5 years, of course I did and grew myself football-wise and did more things football and called personnel from the box and did those things that I needed to do to prepare myself for a position job. But really, I was able to stay at South Carolina because I just did whatever was possible and whatever was needed. And so I think that's why they let, me stay around as long as I did. And I'm definitely thankful for it.
Yeah. I love hearing this, because you kind of reminisce on those early times when, you're just grinding and doing whatever it takes to kind of help the team, kind of some of the things you hit on. And the light at the end of the tunnel, at least at this point in time in the career, I would imagine is, man, I can't wait to get my first gig, my first room, my first opportunity to be a coach. And, you got to be where your feet are, and you can't get ahead of yourself, but at the same time, you got to make sure that you're preparing for that. How did Auburn and South Carolina kind of prepare you for that first year in 22 when you were, the full-time guy?
Yeah, well, I'll say both of those jobs, if we're talking about advice things, when I got to South Carolina, I would call it a journal. My wife would probably make fun of me and call it a diary, but I started taking notes every single day of everything that happened in that building. And what I saw from our coaches, what I saw from players, what I saw decisions our head coach make, our coordinators make, our position coaches make. And I've got it all organized. I've still got it to this day. But just things that I wanted to remember, because, I mean, shoot, we're talking now about 2016, 2017. We're almost 10 years from that. I don't remember what I wore, to work yesterday. I really don't.
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of time writing those things down because, as you spend that much time in a football building, especially in that league, you're going to see some things and you're going to hear some things and some things that I don't want to forget, because I want to either make those same great decisions that I saw Coach Muschamp make or T-Rob make, or I want to remember some of the mistakes that we made and not go back and repeat them. And so I said the first way that those two jobs got me ready for being a position coach was just being quiet, just listening and learning from those dudes, and not trying to take this role of quality controller, analyst, whatever you want to call it, and trying to interject all my ideas and my thoughts. Like I wanted to be quiet so I could hear great coaches and what they thought and what they wanted to do in situations. And then so when I did get that opportunity, I thought and acted like those guys did. And so that's been kind of my whole mentality, is just to learn as much as I can from those guys that are in the positions that I wanted to be in.
Absolutely.
And then obviously the scheme stuff and all that stuff comes with just, you sit in a defensive staff room, a couple hundred Mondays in your life and game plan. Eventually you figure out how it works.
Yeah. You get the hang of it a little bit. Now, before we transition to Coastal Carolina, I had the opportunity to hang out with actually T-Rob, defense coordinator at Tennessee. It was a couple of other guys. And it's some guys that have been around, and somebody floated out the question in this room that I'm in. What's the coolest place that they ever played? Saturday football game. What's the livest environment? And and I was at ULM, so we were SEC mini. We were money games for all those SEC teams. So I got to be around the SEC and play in the Big 12, bounce around Conference USA a little bit. And so I'm expecting some answers, and like 3 or 4 people in that room, and it was like 10 people, 3 or 4 people in the room said South Carolina. Well, what's the environment like there on Saturday night? Because I just have never been there, played around it, but I heard it's just absolutely insane.
Yeah, you need to go. It's electric. Yeah, it's electric. So when my whole time that I was there, I coached, and still today at Liberty, at Coastal when I was there too, I coached from the coaching box. And so at South Carolina, at the press box, when Sandstorm gets going pregame, if it's really, really going and the crowd's really, really juiced, the box sways.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like pencils or pens roll off the table and it gets going. But I really, really enjoyed being in South Carolina. I was there for 5 years. I met my wife there. All positive things. And it was, it gets, especially at night, it gets cranked up in there pretty good.
Well, that's great, man. You added a question to your South Carolina stop. Anytime that significant other gets brought up, I mean, I think it's important that, I always try to talk about at least a little bit, because that is 50% of this business and everything that we're in. When you start adding little ones, it just becomes, a bigger part of the pie. You meet your wife. What's her name?
Hannah.
You meet your wife there, and does she understand the business? Does she understand kind of what you do? Is she able to wrap her head around it?
Yeah, she probably understands it a little better than I wish she did. So she worked in recruiting at South Carolina for Coach Muschamp.
I got you.
And so she worked there for 4 years for Coach Muschamp, and then a year for Coach Beamer after I got let go. And so she, her dad was a college football player at the Citadel. She worked in recruiting, so she understands a lot of it. Our pastime is to come home from work and talk about recruiting and what's going on with the boys and all those things. And, now she's in a different phase of her life. We had a son back in November, so she's stay-at-home mom, wrestling him around all day long, and the puppy dog and all that. But she, every afternoon or evening when I come home, she wants to hear those stories and do those things, because she did those things. She was on official visits. She did game day stuff. She recruited guys. So that's something that we both share a passion for, which I think is really cool, because it's super, super common ground that we have that we love to talk about.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well, I appreciate you introducing us to the fam. Congrats on the new addition, man. That's big time.
Thank you.
Now, in 21, you have an opportunity to head to Coastal Carolina. You mentioned when you were let go, I'm assuming the staff was let go at that point in time, but it's one of the transitions. That's tough, right? You hate when you go and have a place, especially met your wife there. You know what I mean? I can only imagine just how good of an experience that was in this totality. But then you get to the rough part. Just talk to us a little bit about experiencing that for the first time. That's just a part of the business.
Well, and I'll say, hindsight's 2020. When the night that Coach Muschamp got let go during the season in 2020, so we had 3 games left, and I'll never forget that night that it happened because when you have a really good head coach, and I think that he is, when you have a really good head coach, the staff works for him.
Yes.
And I don't just mean, oh, he's our boss.
Yeah.
We're working because we want to see him be successful.
Absolutely.
And to me, that's the mark of not just a good head coach, but a great head coach. And so a bunch of us, myself included, we were working so hard to want to see him be successful. And again, it's a results business. We weren't being successful.
Yeah.
And so he got let go, and I just felt like, man, where does my life go from here? These are the only people that I know. They brought me from Auburn. What's going to happen? And it was a real scary time. Had to do all the coaching things, pack the house up, had nowhere to go, moved back to Atlanta to my parents' house, had all my stuff in a pod, looking for a job. That whole process can be stressful, but it ended up being, and again, praise God for it, but it ended up being the best thing professionally to ever happen to me because it, number one, got me away from the comfort of those guys that they're really working me hard, but I also knew there was comfort in that.
Yeah, for sure.
In a scheme the only scheme I'd ever been taught, that was the one I was working under, right? But it also gave me the opportunity to be around a whole new set of coaches, which again, none of my own doing, all of just God's plan for my life, getting to be around Jamie Chadwell and those guys at Coastal who were already doing fantastic things when I got there, coming and seeing how they were doing things, which he does it completely different. And I think the results speak for themselves. They work.
Yeah.
But just to see him and how he treats his staff and his players from a whole new light was, golly, unbelievable for me. And then spend a year under him off the field and then to be promoted by him the next year was definitely the most important 2 years of my coaching career so far.
Absolutely. Now, I want to kind of share an experience with you here a little bit and let it lead to a question here. So, I played for Todd Berry my first year out of high school at Army. He was fired. I transferred to Baylor. I hadn't seen him in years. We reunite. I go and coach for him, GA, for a semester, and I'm promoted to a full-time coach, and I'm with him for 4 or 5 years. And in that last year, he gets fired with 3 games left, and it was, one of those. I was sitting in the line at Whataburger ordering when he called me and let me know that happened. And it was just one of those moments you don't forget, kind of with some other things in your life. And very, very similar situation. And first of all, the last 3 games were extremely difficult. Just because you were hurting for him, and it was just what's next is the first time for me to experience getting fired. But what I kind of want to lead that to, just having similar experiences, was I was officially done after the season, a couple weeks after the season, so mid-December, let's say, and I didn't get a job until February. And those 2 months, surface level, if you talk to me, hey, what's going on, brother? How you doing? I was all good. But man, I was stressed. I was worried, all that kind of stuff. What were those couple months or, that little downtime between jobs where you're just unemployed? What was that like for you?
Exactly as you said, stressed out. I had felt, there's a kind of a sense in the back of your mind of, especially me at a young age, of, man, this might be it. Like, this might be it. You may have to go do something else, and then you kind of go through that whole thing. And I know a lot of us as coaches go through it. There's a saying, right? It's really, really fun to look for a new job while you have one. It's really, really terrible to look for a new job when you don't have one. Right. And so, because you go through all these things of, oh, this may happen. This guy may get this job. They may call me to do this. That falls through. Oh, I may get this job. No, his cousin's going to do this. No, this guy's uncle's going to do that. Right. And so, it was a constant, and it was tough for me because, especially the first time you go through it, I feel more prepared now for whenever, whenever that may happen again. But the first time you go through it, it was just constant myself having to be in prayer about self-doubt and being about, am I really going to be able to turn this into a new opportunity and make this what I do for my career? Yeah. I was 27 at the time. No one knows what their career is at 27. If you do, you say you do, you're just wrong. Right. And so I kind of, in my mind, I'm thinking, maybe this was just something I did for fun in my 20s, and now I'm going to have to go get a real job. And it's one of those things of just outlasting. Like my coaching mentor, overall coaching mentor, I would say, who is my coaching mentor right now is Kyle Krantz. Was with us at Auburn, South Carolina. He's our DC at Liberty now. Yeah. He told me probably my very first day at Auburn, he said, "This is a great job. This is not a hard job to do mentally. It's a hard job to do emotionally." And he said that the people that make it in this business are the people that are willing to outlast other people through bad things happening. And so, whether you're not making enough money, or your coach gets fired, or the hours are too long, or whatever it may be, the people that end up getting what they want out of this profession a lot of the time are people that are willing to just outlast and stay the course. Yeah. So I really, and again, I was on the phone, text and call and him every day when I was out of a job like that, just about staying the course and staying confident that something would positive happen, and it did. Thank goodness.
Now, one thing that I think that during with my situation that changed my perspective a little bit, because I was similar to you. I had a couple of other jobs at Coach Oscar Ball. I've been to 2 other colleges, so my network was probably a little bit bigger, but I was a young guy, you know what I mean? And my network wasn't huge. Did your perspective change? Because you're probably extremely unique, because that, like you said, that was all you knew almost, right? Was just a handful of guys. So did anything change with your perspective in regards to like networking, finding ways to tap into other people, just not necessarily selfishly for a job, but just to make sure you knew other people in the business?
Yeah, and yes, to answer your question, 100% yes. And I think for me, I'm not naturally one of those reach out and call all my coaching friend guys. I'll text everybody now and then, but a lot of the texts I have with coaches I work for is, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? All right, cool. Your wife's good, right? Yeah. I'm not a big chat on the phone guy. I've got my own family and own things to do. But what it did teach me is that this business, and again, everyone knows this, I'm stating the obvious, this business is almost all hinges upon who you know. Mm-hmm. And you've got to have the knowledge and you've got to have the work ethic and all those things. But the knowledge is, again, like I said, there's so many good coaches in this country that to just say, oh yeah, I can get up on the board and I'm X's and O's and I'm the best in the country. No, you're not. There's always people better than you. What it takes is having relationships with people that genuinely believe that you care about them. And that's not, calling 2 days before the convention and go, hey, where are we going to dinner? Da, 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 da. That's picking out a group of, at least in my mind and the way I approach it is, that's having a group of people that I stay in contact with year round, that I genuinely care about them and I'm close with them. Yeah. Regardless of what I can do for them or what they can do for me. Just having those people to connect with. And that's not just, like you said, for job stuff. That's also just for your mental sanity. Absolutely. Of being able to call people that are going through the same thing. They're going through the transfer portal and they're going through summer OTAs and they're doing official visits and doing all this stuff that as everything changes, just having friends to call and say, hey, what are you guys doing right now? That's something that keeps me a little mentally sane, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know what? The way you kind of phrase that kind of is a little bit of the purpose of this podcast to a certain extent. I mean, how many guys out there have gotten fired for the first time and, they're looking at you saying, dang, this dude coached at Auburn. This dude coached at South Carolina. He's good. He's not worried about it when he got fired. He'll find a job.
Well, it's not the case.
It's not the case. And I think it humanizes it a little bit. It's like, man, it's, it doesn't matter what the logo is, man. We really go through some of the same stuff. And so, no, I really do appreciate you kind of sharing, your experience, because that first go around is rough, man. It's definitely rough to kind of figure it out. Now, getting back to Coastal Carolina. So you kind of have this little bit of a hang. What leads you to Coastal Carolina? How did you get that opportunity as a defensive analyst over there?
So a producer, really two relationships. The first one was with Chad Staggs, who was the defense coordinator at Coastal Carolina at the time. He had visited us a few times at South Carolina defensively. And so one of my, again, many jobs when people came to visit us at South Carolina defensively was, hey, you pick them up, you take them back to the hotel, you make sure they got what they need, get them set up, teach them whatever they need, make sure they're comfortable. That was my job because I was the waiter, I was the host, I was the breakdown guy,
chauffeur.
Chauffeur. I did all those things. So it allowed me to make a lot of connections. And so one of them was with Coach Staggs, who is a fantastic person and a better coach. And then Rod Wilson, who was our linebacker coach at South Carolina. Obviously, that whole Muschamp staff got let go. He got the linebacker job at Coastal Carolina. So it was the analyst job under him coaching linebackers. And so making those two connections, again, with everyone that gets a job has an assist from somebody with an assist from Coach Krantz, kind of helping me make those connections. But it was about a 400. I only went to Auburn. I'm not a math major. It was about a 400% pay decrease to go to Coastal. But it was one of those. It was one of those moments once again of, hey, what do you want? Do you want to go get on this rocket ship with Coach Chadwell and the crazy success they've had, and or do you want to be stubborn and not take this job because you don't think it pays enough? And so again, just had to take my pills, swallow my pride, and not ask where my seat was on the ship. Just go get on and ride and be lucky to be around those guys.
And as I can only imagine, you get there, you do a heck of a job as a defensive analyst. But this one ultimately leads to a promotion to you've been a full-time coach there in 22. This is probably a hard question, obviously, for you to answer, but probably better for Coach Chadwell. But what did you do? What did you do to capture that attention? For him to say, I got an open position. He needs to be the guy.
Well, I think the first thing when I got to Coastal Carolina was really the first time in my career that I went out on a limb and started to speak up.
Yeah.
At Auburn for sure, not a word, just work. At South Carolina, maybe a couple of words, but again, mouth closed, just put your head down and work. At Coastal, I got there and I felt like now at this point, obviously I'm older, I'm more confident in who I am as a coach, but I felt like, I've come from a new place that these guys have. A lot of the Coach Chadwell staff, if you're familiar with his staff, a lot of them have been together for a really long time.
Yep.
So for anyone to join from outside of that network is unique and a rare opportunity. And so I felt opportunity to go in there and speak, and whether it was present, hey, we did this in South Carolina, we did this drill and we really liked it, or we organized this way and we liked it, or we ran these couple of things on defense and we liked it. Starting to speak up when the time was right, and not being the guy that just talks too much, but being someone that when they do speak has good ideas.
It's value, yeah.
Try to work that, and then still keeping that same mindset of whatever needs to be done, I'll happily do it. And that's because, again, and not to make it all about me, but I'm a short white guy that didn't play college football. So the reason to hire me in full-time jobs, they're really, in my college experience, there really aren't any. And so I've got to find a different way than a lot of other people do it. And just my own personal way is just work.
Yeah.
So I try to come in there and overwhelm you with, man, this guy, he don't stop.
Yeah.
And so that was trying to keep that mindset. But that was really the first time at Coastal, starting to speak up and do those things. And then, again, all a God thing is just Coach Chadwell's trust in his program and in what he has as a culture going, that he would rather promote people from within that understand the culture and the way he wants things done, than bring in outside people, because I'm not dumb enough to think there wasn't people from the outside telling him not to hire me and go with a more experienced guy.
Yeah.
So I'm forever grateful to him for doing that for me.
Yeah, we actually had Coach Chadwell on the podcast. Maybe it was his last year at Coastal, and that was one of the things that really stood out. Like a lot of the guys, I don't know if they had either played for him, but they were with him at Delta State. Was it Delta State?
North Greenville, Delta State, Charleston Southern, everywhere.
Yeah, the whole staff, and I had a couple other guys on. I think he's still over there. Man, now I think about that, Liberty staff is probably about 3,535 guys on that staff, and it was some of those guys, and they had been with the 3 or 4 stops. I was like, golly, he kind of likes his guys. So like you said, to be an outsider, that was kind of a unique deal for you to be able to kind of join the staff and be a part of that culture. Now,
very. I got a good story about that. So my very first day at Coastal, very first day, I'm working. I don't know anybody. I'm getting to my desk, doing my little work, taking my notes. I don't have a computer or anything yet. I'm just working. And about 11:15, everybody's gone. I don't see a soul. And again, I don't know anybody. I don't have anybody's phone number, so I just stay at my desk. And I feel maybe, we already had a staff meeting. It can't be that.
Right.
And so I hear someone coming down the hallway. Well, I'm in the defense staff room. I peek my head out in the hallway, and Coach Chadwell is in basketball shoes and his Jordans, in baggy basketball shorts and a ratty T-shirt. And he's like, "Are you coming?" I said, "Am I coming where?" He said, "We're all going to play basketball. Let's go." And so we go, and I follow him to the gym, and there's so many people that they're running 2 courts at one time. There's probably 25 staff members playing basketball. And so it was just coming from South Carolina with Coach Muschamp, where we were very boom, 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 kind of grinding it out, to getting to with Coach Chadwell, where, we actually stop and take a break every now and then. I was like, wow, this is different. And it was quite a different thing for me.
Yeah, no, that's I think that those experiences, when I interview you here in 10 years, when I get you back on the podcast and you're a head coach, I just think that's huge, because it just goes to show you so many different ways to cut the cake, and you can still have success, and regardless of how you cut it. And I think having those multiple experiences are huge, and that was a big thing we used to do with Todd Berry. I was talking about noon hoops, like it was the coolest thing the first time. Like you said, man, wear your basketball shoes, we're gonna hoop.
I couldn't believe it.
Are you kidding me? Cool, man. But so I do want to talk about that W once again. Some of those W's that everybody doesn't get to see. You get promoted full time. Just what goes on inside of you when, man, I'm talking about 2013 to 2022. You're on the staff. You're contributing. You're helping. You're part of the win or loss. Either way. Yep. But man, you finally kind of get rewarded a little bit to be a full-time guy. What was that experience like between yourself, your wife? What was the celebration?
Well, you never forget it, and now my wife wasn't my wife at the time, but I think that getting promoted probably convinced her to maybe move a little closer towards that.
And probably helped you out financially with it too.
For her to go, maybe he will be able to take care of me doing this. Right. No, but it was, for me, is just, like you said, finding, like I said earlier, finding joy in those little wins.
Yeah.
And being able to look back and seeing those stack up into what you would maybe consider a bigger one.
Yeah.
Was just very humbling, I think. And just to go, to hear the first head coach have confidence in you to do that. And once again, for me, to do it a position that you didn't play, 90% of the people in this industry played the position they coached. And so for him to have trust in me to handle that for him, I'll tell you what it does is it makes you want to work really hard to prove him right. To not just to prove that you can coach, but you want to, when a head coach promotes you, and I've seen Coach Chadwell do it multiple times, twice with me, it makes you want to prove him right that he has trust in you.
Absolutely.
And so that was big. And, I think in my head, and I think this is probably all of us, in my head, I had this, one day I'm going to get put on the field and it's going to be this big announcement and I'm going to tell everybody and everyone's going to cheer for me.
Right.
And again, I know we keep talking about noon hoops, but I'm getting dressed in the locker room in like April. It's the full-time coaches are going to go out on the road the next Monday. It's Thursday afternoon. I'm getting dressed at Coastal for noon hoops. And Coach Chadwell's secretary calls me and says, "Hey, can you come meet in the office?" And once again, he's dressed in his basketball clothes. I'm dressed in my basketball clothes. We go through, and again, it's a longer story than this, but he basically sits down and goes, "Hey, the linebacker job's open. You did a good job this spring. You want to do it?" I said, now I'm shaking. I'm nervous. "Yeah, I'd love to do it." He goes, "Okay." And I'm thinking there's, going to all be these questions. He goes, "Hey, do you want a stipend or just for us to give you your phone?" Like, I'll take something. He goes, okay, we're going to be late to basketball. Let's go. And so it was, it was one of those things where I probably built it up in my head for so long that when it happened, it was a little anticlimactic. But then I think later on, getting to make those phone calls to my now wife and my family and my brother and all those people that have seen me go through all those things, it's gratifying to be like, oh my gosh, maybe this is going to work.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. Those moments are special, and they definitely got to take them when they come. Now you guys move over to Liberty, and obviously you've had a lot of success there. Helped Liberty to a 13-1 record in 2023 with the appearance in the Fiesta Bowl. Helped to 8-4 record in 24 with the appearance in the Bahamas Bowl. How do you, the thing about Coach Chadwell, which I found extremely interesting, was he just has success everywhere that he goes. And, at the FBS level, I'm not saying it's any different, but I think sometimes when you just pick up this Coastal Carolina outfit and culture and all that kind of stuff, and you drop it in the middle of Virginia, am I right?
Virginia.
Drop it in the middle of Virginia at Liberty. And sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes it's a different type of kid that you got to recruit or whatever. How are you guys able to kind of just come over there and just immediately just kind of pick up where you left off in regards to success?
Well, when we talk about success at Liberty, and I think everyone knows this, especially in college, it's about the players, first of all.
Absolutely.
You can, there's, like you said, there's tons of ways to do it. There's tons of ways to work. There's tons of schedules. There's tons of ways to practice. There's tons of schemes to run. But at the end of the day, it's about players. And so we have great players here, and Liberty provides us a really, really good opportunity to recruit high-level players with the facilities that we have and the way that the administration supports the team, supports us. We're able to provide really power forward level everything for our players, which is why you're able to get good players. But from the culture part of it with Coach Chadwell, his culture, and again, I only got there in 2021 at Coastal, but his core values of his culture, of his program, which we won't go through them all, but those haven't changed since he was at North Greenville.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but what it is I think every coach, right, everybody has their acronym or whatever it is, and we do too. But you've got to have a head coach and a staff that genuinely believes in those things. Because if you have a head coach that loves the acronym or whatever, the core values of your program, but the staff just kind of goes like this with it and goes about their day, that's what doesn't work. To me, what works, two things I'll say works with Coach Chadwell. He has intentionally surrounded, and that's why a lot of coaches stay a long time. He's intentionally surrounded himself with people that believe in what he believes in. And so when he asks us to relay these messages to the players or entrust his players with us to impart these values on, we do it. But then number two, I would say, and this isn't secret sauce, this is just what I think makes us unique, is we spend a ton of time in what we call coach-player relationship. And I think it gives us our edge, if you want me to be completely honest, that we spend, I would say, hours of our day, or definitely hours of our week, spending time with our players, whether it's our position, across positions, across the ball, with players in our office talking about anything but football. And so we have a culture here at Liberty, and we had it at Coastal too, where the players come up in the afternoons, and some guys are watching film with their coaches or their analysts or whatever, but a lot of guys just come up here and sit at my desk and do their homework or FaceTime their friends or talk to me about the football game or the basketball game or whatever. And I think that comes into, when we get to the end of the season, I'm sorry, this is a long-winded answer, but when you get into the season, everybody wants to win.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to win. Wanting to win is not enough. And I think when you get into the hard parts of the season, having personal relationships with your coaches, with the players, are going to be the things that bind you together when inevitably things go bad. If we just rally under this flag for 12 months a year of, win, 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 get to the NFL, get to the NFL, get to the NFL, those are all really, at the end of the day, things that are not completely in our control. What is in our control is the relationships we have with each other and the fact that we're all playing together for the brotherhood under one group together, playing for each other. And you don't just, you can't just say we're going to play for each other. you have to truly love one another to do that. And so Coach Chadwell, he's a phenomenal coach, obviously multiple-time coach of the year. He basically invented an offense. He's X's and O's as good as they come, but he is elite, in my opinion, of developing a culture of cohesion and love within the group.
A lot to take away from that answer, but probably the thing that stands out the most is culture has become such this kind of buzz term, this buzzword in our society to a certain extent. Yeah. And there are programs that you walk through, and I'm not taking shots at anybody. I've been a part of them, unfortunately. And, they're nothing more than the culture is nothing more than some pictures on the wall, or like you said, the acronym or something that everybody says. But if you're not living it, if your staff's not living it, it doesn't really mean much. And probably when I look at his staff and I see the guys that have been with him 3, 4, 5 stops, it just says a whole heck of a lot about him. Because I would only imagine some of those guys hadn't had some opportunities to maybe make a little bit more money or maybe get a cooler logo on their shirt, but you kind of see that in loyalty. It kind of tells you a lot about that head ball coach. But before I let you go here, man, I know we're pushing the hour. I did want to ask you one last question. This past January, you were a part of the AFCA 35 under 35, which I couldn't be more proud of kind of what that thing has developed into, especially when you look around and see, and Coach Krantz and some of the other guys there on your staff, and all the FBS head coaches that have kind of developed from that program. Why should we encourage people to apply, and why should a guy apply, and what was your experience?
Yeah, where do I start? So for me, incredible experience all around. Like you guys, from the first part of it, without all the content, just the professionalism of how it's set up, all of the communication, all the application process is all just completely first class, easy to do. So I would encourage everybody from that standpoint. Like I think in my mind at times I was like, I don't want to do all this. I don't want to write this paper. I don't want to like you guys make it super, super simple. But getting into, for me, the opportunity to get around people my age that are chasing the same thing I'm chasing is just so, so rare. Because you can go to the convention, and you should. I encourage you to go to the convention, but there's just thousands of people, and it's impossible to sort out who's who and da-da-da. When you get in the 35 under 35, you know that you are around a select group of people that all do the same things you do, want the same things you want, and are chasing the same dreams you're chasing. And so to be around those people is obviously incredible for me. But then to hear those former head coaches that you guys brought in, especially for me, was incredible, because that's, again, a long-term goal of mine is to be a head coach. And to hear those guys talk and just take pages and pages and pages of notes was just incredible. And like specifically from this year, a moment that I still talk about, I told our staff about, I still take notes from it. But to have Coach Golish there talking, and why Coach Golish there is talking, to have Coach Dillingham from Arizona State come in the room and basically stand up there with them and do a Q&A with 2 head coaches, both extremely successful, both who I have a huge amount of respect for. I probably took 4 pages of notes just from hearing them talk and hearing them, how they approach things and all those things. So my ultimate sell of the AFCA, or to the 35 under 35, would be that if you see yourself one day wanting to be a head coach and wanting to learn about that, there is no other better day in our business and our profession to get you around those people that are where you want to be and hear and pick their brain. It was an incredible experience for me. I wish I could do it again next year, and it'll be a memory that I have for a very long time.
Well, I appreciate hearing that. The funny thing about Coach Dillingham was I had 100% intent on having him come and speak, but all of a sudden he has this heck of a run, and I was like, man, do I want to call him and say, hey, if you don't make it, you can come and speak. You're kind of in that mode. I didn't want to put any bad juju on it. And man, he was the fact that it was important for him to show up, man, that meant a lot to me, and obviously the program meant a lot to him. So I appreciate you doing that. That was a cool moment.
Yeah, it blew me away. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well, hey, I enjoyed the time, man. And before I let you go, I'd love for you to drop a social media account or anything like that. Coaches listen to this, they got any questions and want to reach out to you, Twitter account's fine, but if you want to drop that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, sure. My Twitter is just my name, Aaron Fierbaugh. I'm easy to find, unique spelling, unique last name. So I'm easy to find. Please reach out, shoot me a message. I'm one of the few coaches. I only have one phone. So you got my number. That's my real number. But reach out to me, please. Give me a call. Give me an email. You get my number, obviously from you guys too as well. But yeah. I'd love to talk to anybody that just doesn't feel like they're qualified or like they're called to do this. Be aggressive, be confident, and go after it, because this business and college football just needs good people. That's so right. Keep pushing and do those things that you love doing.
Amen, man. Well, best of luck to you here as we head into the season, man. I look forward to catching up with you back in Charlotte in 26. Okay.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you again.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
All right.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.